What's going on, everyone? We are live with probably one of the nicest and likable people from this season, Morgan. Morgan, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I mean, other than the fact that I just got voted out, but other than that, I'm doing great.
Yes.
Happy to be here.
Yes, you were indeed blindsided on that vote. It didn't look like you had a clue it was coming.
I literally had no idea. Until I saw my name the first time, I had no idea that it was coming. I mean, after Frank played the steal a vote, I knew that things were not going to go the way that I wanted them to, but I didn't think that I was going to get voted out even at that point. So yeah, I definitely got blindsided. So kudos to them.
So when you saw Frank that he was going to play steal a vote, what direction did you think the vote was going to go in? Because clearly you knew something was up.
Yeah, I thought there would still be a chance that Rob, Corey, Jeremy, and I could still vote together, because obviously I can't talk to them after they play the steal a vote. So I was basically banking on them still all voting Frank and the rest of Nakota still voting the way that Nakota said that they were going to vote, which was splitting on Denny and Carrie. So that's why I was like doing the math in my head, trying to figure out if the votes were still going to work out that way, which in the end, it didn't even matter because they were all voting for me. So.
Right. You have a lot of people here that are fans of yours in the comments section. Alex says, so fun watching you play, Morgan. Sorry to see you go. You should have gotten rid of Frank. And we stand Morgan. So like I said, probably one of the most likable people on this season. You had a lot of people rooting for you and a lot of people were bummed to see you go.
Well, that makes me feel good. Feeling the love.
But I do want to talk about some dynamics in terms of alliances and everything, because we did see Corey with you guys on that Zoom call. Did you 100% buy that Corey was with you, or were you ever shady that he could have been with the other side as well?
I honestly thought that he was with us. Jeremy had voiced concerns, and I should have listened to him, but I mean, Corey, of anybody, is the one who fooled me the most. So I definitely have to give him credit for that, which is a big reason why I didn't vote out Frank before, because I honestly thought that I had a group of 5 that I was going to be able to vote with moving into the end game. So, yeah, Corey was definitely somebody that I thought was with me. Early on, I obviously trusted Ian and Jeremy the most. We were a group of 3. And then after the merge, things got very messy. I knew that we could trust Phil to work with us because he was very upset with Pook and Denny about how things had gone down with the McKenna vote. And he would vote with us no matter what. And so, yeah, I thought I had people with me, and I just didn't have all the people that I thought I did. So
let's kind of talk about that situation where you said you could have potentially voted for Frank earlier on. We did see in this episode where Denny said, Morgan, you should have listened to me. So please talk about what all went down with that whole scenario.
Okay, so after Ian got voted out, I was literally crushed. I was so upset, and I did not know what way was up in the Survivor game and what was real and what wasn't real. At some point that night, I was on a Zoom call with Jeremy and the 3 Miami people, so Phil, Pook, and Denny. And just like Denny said, they literally told us everything. that the Nakota was doing. And I did not believe them. I just didn't know what to believe. I never worked with Pook or Denny before. Pook is very stressful to be in the game with, and that was weighing on me. So it was just so much information coming at me at once. I didn't know what to believe was real, and I had to go with my gut. And so my biggest mistake was trusting Corey. I could have voted with them and voted out Frank instead of Pook. But at the end of the day, I don't think it would have made that much of a difference for my game personally. I still think that Denny and Logan were going to connect and work together. And it still would have been the TRHS side of Nakota working with then Pook and Denny instead of Frank and Denny, I guess. So I guess I should have listened to her, but in the grand scheme of things, I really don't think it would have made that much of a difference.
Well, so you do talk about the 3 Maiamia coming to you guys and feeding you all this information. I have to ask, if Pook was not in the picture and it was a different player, do you think then maybe you would have trusted it?
Like if it had been, say, McKenna.
Yes, anyone else with Denny and Phil. Anyone else with Denny and Phil. Do you think you would have gone with the plan then?
Yes, I would have much, 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 much more likely been willing to go that direction. Because I did have an established relationship with McKenna, and I felt like she was somebody that I could trust and really connect with on a strategic level. I just felt like, I mean, one, I didn't know Denny really at all on a game level. From what I had experienced with Pook, I just knew that the way that we played the game is not a compatible way to play. And so I just felt like it was just kind of like these 3 people that were just thrown together so randomly. And it just didn't feel like a solid group that I felt good about moving forward with in the game, because I knew that if I decided to go vote with them, I was moving all my eggs into the Maiamia basket, and I was not prepared for that. So that's why I ended up staying with Nakota, even though it was the wrong move, I guess.
I mean, I do tend to agree with you. You were having to potentially work with a much dysfunctional Maiamia group with those 3, because clearly you can see as the episode went on, especially today's episode, between Denny and Phil, very dysfunctional all around. So I definitely get where you're coming from. And that's what it comes down to, which type of players are in the game, who you get good vibes with, and who you're able to ultimately work with at the end of the day. But I do want to talk about some of the alliances that you did have with some people. Obviously, right off the bat, we could tell that Ian was your number 1. So I want to talk about Ian a little bit. Was he always someone that was going to be in your end game, or was he someone that you were going to get close to the end with and cut loose, or how was that going to work?
So obviously you guys saw at pregame, we had a group with me, Ian, McKenna, Jeremy, Phil, and Annabelle. And that was the group of 6 that I was planning to play the game with pre-game. And I didn't really make like end game plans. I feel like it's good to plan a few votes ahead, but if you try to plan for final 3 when there's still 20 people left in the game, there's just too many unknowns at that point. So after the swap, I felt okay because I was with 4 of the original 6 that I had aligned with. And of that group of 4, I felt like I connected with Ian the most. Just, we were like-minded. I felt like we could talk strategically really well, and we just got along. And I mean, he's definitely one of my closest friends from the game, which is awesome. So I feel like it was very early on that we were like, yes, it's us two. You're my number one, 100%. You know, he told me after that he would have voted me out before the final 3, which I have no hard feelings about. But I honestly, I don't know. I don't know what I would have done if we had gotten to the end together. I didn't in my head have a plan to get rid of him at 4 or before the final 3. I felt like that would have been a bridge I would cross when I got to it. So my ideal end game was with Ian, Jeremy, Corey, Rob, and I would have liked Carrie to be in the final 6. That was kind of my post-merge plan. And then after final 6, it was kind of like whatever happened after that, I would have been okay with. Obviously, I wanted to make it to the end, but that was my plan, and it obviously did not happen.
Yeah, no, it didn't happen for you, which is unfortunate. But I want to kind of backtrack a little bit to the tribe of Nakota, because you guys were a complete powerhouse throughout the entire season. You were killing it in challenges and just destroying Miami. I really want to pinpoint on the Annabelle vote, though, because do you think that changed the game and what happened with how you finished in the game?
Yes, I do think it changed the game, because I think that if we hadn't voted Annabelle out, I would have been voted out at that tribal council, just based on what I've heard in confessionals and their plans for what they were going to do if we hadn't come to them with that plan. We truly wanted it to be, so we knew that Frank was in the middle, and we did not really know where his loyalty would lie. So even though we had voted out Sam, I mean, Frank could have gone either way. We obviously know now he would have what his plans ultimately were, but we wanted to show the TRHS players that we really wanted to work with them, and it wasn't going to be just us trying to pick off TRHS players one by one. We truly did want to work with the Nakota tribe. So that's why we went to them and said, we want to vote out Annabelle. We want to establish trust. And so, yeah, either way, it would have been a specialist going home at that vote. I know that. So it was Annabelle instead of me, or one of the other guys, I guess. But
so we see throughout the game that you do end up having a strong relationship with Rob. At that point in the game, what was your relationship with Rob like?
So Rob is an awesome guy. He's super funny. Definitely somebody that I trusted in the game. Like I said, I really believed in my group of 5, with Ian, Jeremy, Rob, and Corey. He and I didn't have like a, you're my number one or anything like that. There was no final 3 deals or anything. It was a final 5 with those 4 guys and me. So that was my relationship with Rob.
Well, I guess here's my question with that, because so you vote out Annabelle at that spot, but say you had you, Ian, Annabelle, and Jeremy. Could you have pulled Rob over to have 5 people and vote out someone from the TRHS side. Did you guys ever think or talk about that, or were you not as close with Rob at that time?
At that point in time, no.
Okay.
We were not. So it was right before that vote that Rob did tell me about how he was offered the hidden immunity idol. That was that challenge with the puzzle that we lost. So I knew that Rob was somebody that I could work with, but again, like, our mindset was that we wanted to make a united group, and trying to vote out a TRHS person wouldn't say that, I guess. But
yeah, it's always tough. I just like to play scenarios. So
yeah, I honestly, until you asked me that question, I hadn't even thought about that. So it is interesting. I guess Rob would be the person to ask that question. I don't know what he would have done if we had approached him with that. I get the feeling that anything that I guess maybe not Rob, but all the other TRHS people were openly talking to each other. So anything that we said to them would have gone to everybody else. So I don't know what more maneuvering we could have done at that point.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, we see with this vote, Rob was not included on the vote in their plan with what was happening. He was sticking essentially by your side. So that's why I asked that question with what the relationship was like then. But it seems like it progressed as the game moved forward, the Rob relationship with you.
Yeah. Corey's saying that Rob might have actually gone with it. So I guess maybe we could have done that. But it really was not, it was not a thought. I feel like our strategic bond as an alliance kind of grew as the game progressed, and it was still pretty early on to know whether or not we could trust any of them. So
it's what makes the game difficult, but it's what also makes the game fun.
Yeah. So Frank says Rob would have told Corey, and then we would have known.
So it sounds like this is a Rob question. So we'll get back to that and let you guys know what actually would happen.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about something else too. Do you think if another swap would have happened in the game, would that have helped your game?
Yes, it definitely would have helped my game. Because if we had swapped earlier, we would have had actual specialist numbers advantage. So it could have changed the trajectory of the game instead of what ended up happening with the specialists. I mean, you saw the last, 4 votes, 5 votes were all specialists. So I do think it totally would have changed.
Now, you guys being the strong unit of Nakota over there, were there any talks ever amongst any of the people in your tribe about potentially throwing a challenge at all to just get rid of any dead weight on the tribe or just to get rid of any strategic players? Was that ever in anyone's plans, do you know of?
No, not that I was aware of. Obviously, Sam early on wasn't contributing. I mean, he did fine in challenges and everything, so he wasn't a hindrance to us in that way. But as far as I was aware, we never had any talks of throwing a challenge. Now we did talk about scenarios like if we swap and one tribe, Nakota, doesn't have the advantage somehow, then the other tribe would throw the challenge. So there was discussion of that if a swap had occurred.
Now, would you have done that, or would it have depended on who you got stuck on a tribe with?
I think it would have depended. it definitely would have depended who I was on a tribe with. So, I mean, I would say McKenna was the most likely person I would have been willing to work with on the Miami side if she had been on a swap tribe with me. And then, yeah. And then obviously, I feel like whoever she trusted, I would have been able to trust in that kind of situation. But like, it truly would have depended. Obviously, we did have the swap right before the merge, where Andrew was the only Miamia. But even beyond that, he and I were the only specialists. Well, I guess if you call Frank a specialist, but I don't. There's nothing we could have done there anyway. And I honestly wasn't even considering at that point because I really was wanting to work with. I felt like I had a path that I saw to the end, where if I kept voting with Nakota, within Nakota, I had that majority group that I could then progress through the post-merge with. So at that point in time, I didn't have a reason to vote against them. So it all comes back to Corey. Darn Corey.
Damn Corey. Yeah. All right, so you did bring up the little shakeup that we did prior to the merge where Andrew essentially was on an island on his own. I do want to talk about the move that you did in terms of having that spy shack, talking to Andrew, getting as much information as you possibly could. Was that initially your idea to do that? Or did you know that you were someone that could be able to talk to Andrew because he was a former specialist, or kind of break that down?
I don't remember 100% how it all went down, but I know we talked right away that we wanted to make sure he was not going to play an idol if he did have one. We didn't think that he did, just kind of based on what we had observed from Miami at the challenges. It didn't really seem like he was, super active with the game. But we wanted to make sure. And so I do feel bad because I feel like it was maybe a little overkill with the whole strategy of it. But yeah, we did want to know what was happening on those votes and who was voting for who. And honestly, I feel like we didn't really get a whole lot. I don't even think Andrew really knew or remembered exactly what had happened at the votes. So I don't know how much spying was actually successfully done, but
I think
we didn't have an idol. Or at least
the biggest thing you get out of it is you figure out he doesn't have an idol. But if potentially he's a very good liar and does indeed have an idol, it's beneficial for you in particular because you're the one on the phone with him and you're the one that he thinks is going to potentially work with him along with Corey. So that keeps your name off his list. So It is a good move for you if he were to have had an idol because he's not going to write your name down.
That's very true. That is very true.
So I do think if he had an idol, he was going to go for Frank like he did vote in that episode. But
yeah. Well, and at that tribal council, Frank says to Andrew, if you want to stay alive, vote for Morgan. And he told me that he was going to say that at tribal. But I almost basically forgot that he was going to say it. And it definitely took me by surprise. So I feel like my reaction was both authentic and what it was supposed to be according to our plan that we had. So
yes, I will give you props. Your reaction was very good. We have been told that some people aren't very good actors on this season. So that was a good moment where you did quite well. I will give you props for that.
Thanks.
But I do want to talk about some of the challenges because you're someone on the season that was very good in most of the challenges. You really weren't weak in any of them. So do you think because you were so strong in challenges that people viewed you as someone that they had to get rid of?
I don't know. I felt like, I mean, obviously I won the immunity last episode, but before that, I felt like I was just always a strong contender. I don't think that would have ever been a reason that I would be voted out, unless I started winning a lot of them. Thanks, Cameron.
Yeah, Cam's like, she was a beast. I think what I'm trying to say is none of the challenges you had issues with. The only challenge you just didn't win was the puzzle. And that was a hard puzzle. But all the other ones, you were either in the top of the group or you were about to win.
Yeah, that puzzle. Oh my gosh. Watching that episode back, I was like getting anxious again, just like watching myself do the puzzle and watching that all happen. That was a rough night. And I also did not do well with the Oreo on the spoon challenge, which would have been nice, you know, because then you wouldn't be talking to me tonight. So,
well, now that you bring that up real quick, do you have any thought of going for the clue?
You know, in my mind, I felt like going for the clue is just kind of, it casts a shadow onto you. You know, people are going to look at you and say, oh, why is she going for the clue? And I didn't want that attention. So that's mostly why I opted for going for immunity instead of the clue. But I obviously should have gone for the clue because I did not do well at the challenge. But
Now,
what if I should have?
And now, as soon as we set up for the challenge, though, and you put that first Oreo on, did you say to yourself, crap, I have no chance?
No, I didn't feel that way. But it just, I don't know, it just wasn't my challenge, I guess. And
yeah, it wasn't Corey's challenge either because he didn't even get the Oreo on. So
yeah.
That was a tough one for Corey for sure. And that's what my point is. A lot of people struggled in many of the challenges. I will say I think the challenges this season were much harder than season 1 challenges for sure.
Yeah, I liked all the challenges. I thought they were fun. It was a good variety of things. So
some of them were fun to watch. The blindfold one was a little tough to watch.
Yeah, as a member of Nakota in that challenge, I was feeling pretty good, but I can imagine being on the other side of that.
Yeah, that was
a little rough.
And the card challenge, the memory one, that was tough too.
Oh yeah, that was a tough challenge actually. Just the coordination between the 3 people you were playing with and having to keep track of what card was yours. It wasn't so much, for me at least, it wasn't so much the memorization as it was knowing, okay, I have the number 2, number 5, and number 8 card, and having to keep track of what one you were saying and also memorizing it at the same time. So I would be looking at the cards on my desk and you're saying them and I'm trying to count, and you know, I point one out and I'm looking at it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shoot, I wasn't listening to the next card that Lauren just said, and now I've lost count and now I'm off track. And that was the hardest part about it. So, but it was a good challenge. It's, you know, it doesn't mean it was a bad challenge. It just means it was a tough challenge. And
it was.
Yeah.
It was tough. But then we see a different variation of it in the challenge that you do ultimately end up winning. And I'm guessing you think that way was so much easier because you're just memorizing a straight set of cards there.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. That was easier because I didn't have to keep track of what cards were mine and what ones weren't. I just knew I had to remember all of them. So that was better.
Yep. All right. So I do have to ask, because I've been asking many people that have been eliminated from the game, would you play this again?
I think so. I think I need a nice long break. It's a blast. I had fun. I do feel like for not actually being on the show, it feels like you're actually playing Survivor. It's really hard to balance your real life and playing this game, and to actually play it well, and to dedicate the time that it needs to play it well. That's the hardest thing for me, I feel like, with these games. So depending on when it was, if it worked out, I think I would play again. It's, watching.
Morgan for second chances.
Hey, maybe. Yeah, I think if the conditions were right, I would play again, but I'm not gonna go sign up for one that starts tomorrow, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective as a host, I think you were all around a triple threat in many areas, and I think that's why you are sitting here with me right now. And I do think if you had a second chance to play the game, I think you would be a strong force and someone that people would need to watch out for sure.
You're not supposed to say that. I'm not a threat. I don't know what you're talking about.
Ian commented, hosting sounds fun too, right?
That would be fun. I'd be down.
It's way different from the other side, that's for sure. But
yeah,
you get a mixture of both, because then you get to kind of make fun of people and give shit for all the stuff they mess up on.
I don't know if I'm good at making fun of people, but
I mean, I didn't really make fun of people, but I called people out, and that was enjoyable.
Yeah, that's fair.
So if you do play again, what would you change up about your game?
I think I would need to be more fluid and flexible with my game. I feel like I had a good plan, but it was like the only plan that I had. I didn't have really any contingency plans for if my plan A didn't work out, which it didn't. And so then I got voted out. So I feel like you have to kind of walk that fine line of being loyal and trustworthy as an ally, and also being able to maneuver in different relationships and be able to work with different groups of people. So I feel like I would need to have a better blend of those two things.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you play again, and a lot of people in the comments are as well. So we'll see what happens in the future. But is there anything that you wanted to touch on that we did not go through?
Oh, I don't think so. I just want to say thanks to you, Lauren, and Ryan's not here, but also thanks to him for hosting and making just an awesome season for all of us. I know you guys put a lot of time and hard work into putting that together. And good luck to everybody who's still in the game. It's been fun watching the episodes back, and I'm excited to see all the what you guys were really thinking throughout the game. That's the fun part. So
yeah, it is the fun part, and I appreciate the words that you said about Ryan and myself. At the end of the day, the season wouldn't have been what it was without all of you guys playing. It has been a great cast of people, and like you just said, it's going to be exciting to see what happens in the end game. It's going to be an interesting finish. It's going to be a crazy finish. So viewers, stay tuned to that. And Morgan, thank you so much for joining me tonight. This was an absolute blast, and goes to show how many people in the comments section really loved your game. We're sad to see you go and want to see you play another time.
Well, thanks, Lauren. It's been fun.
Yeah. All right. So everyone, next episode will drop tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and we will go live again at 9 p.m. Eastern time with the recap and exit interview. You guys all have a good night. Thanks again, Morgan.
Thanks, Lauren.